Hi everyone, it's Margaret with Creative Stamping with Margaret. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today the card I'm sharing with you is one of the cards from the April 2023 card class. And this month the card class featured the Sweet Citrus bundle, and that bundle comes with these Sweet Citrus stamp set, as well as the hybrid embossing folder and dies. These come as a set, so it's really just a great combination. And I'll be showing you two ways to use this embossing folder when we're making this card. And just a little note about this Sweet Citrus bundle: it is still available. It is from the mini catalog, and you can purchase it as a bundle through May 1st. May 1st is the last day you can order it as a bundle, but the good news is it is carrying over into the annual catalog, but it will not be offered as a bundle. You'd have to order the stamps and the dies separately. So if you want the 10% savings that you get with the bundle, I encourage you to place your order soon, before May 2nd, when the new catalog goes live. But on to our card. The card today is, I'm calling this our lemon squeeze card, because it's lemons. And the sentiment I'm using from the stamp set says, "Sending you a big squeeze." And it's just a cute card. And as you can tell, I'm keeping it monochromatic with the yellows. The materials that you're going to need, of course, you're going to need stamps. And from the stamp set, you will need the stamp that's the rind, as well as the interior of the fruit. You will need the flowers. And you'll need the centers of the flowers if you wish to stamp the flowers on your envelope. And you can also stamp them in the center of the card if you want, but as you can see, I used an embellishment for the card center. Of course, you'll need that sentiment, "Sending you a big squeeze," and then the leaf stamp. And then there are dies that coordinate with the flowers and the leaves. You'll also need a stitched rectangle die, or some other shape that would give you an oblong. The tailored tags would do that, or you could just fussy cut around the sentiment, or even just cut a little rectangle of paper. But I just thought the sentiment on a rectangle looked great on the stitched rectangle. And then, of course, you're going to need the hybrid embossing folder, as well as the die that goes into the embossing folder to cut the fruit. And I'm going to show you how we do that here in just a moment. But the first step, let me go back and give you the rest of the materials you need. For inks, we're using Granny Apple Green and Daffodil Delight. And then we're going to pull in our cardstock colors, and we'll go through those quickly. So for our card base, we're using Daffodil Delight, and don't worry about dimensions, so forth. I'm not even going to give them to you in this video. They will be listed in the description of this video, along with the sizes that I've cut to use. So go ahead and fold our card base. And of course, don't forget you'll need whatever your favorite adhesives are. So we have our card base. And then we also have a piece of Daffodil Delight that we're going to texture emboss to give us our background. So let me pull up my embossing cut and emboss machine. And for this, when you're cutting using the embossing folder with your cut and emboss machine, you just need plate number 1 and plate number 4 if you have the cut and emboss machine. So we're going to take that Daffodil Delight. Let me reach around my machine. It's a little tight here. And so I'm going to place this into my embossing folder. And I like to use the front edge of the embossing folder that has the Stampin' Up emblem on the front and the line. So I use that line to place my paper against to make sure I have it straight in there. Then I'm just going to put that in my sandwich, and we're going to crank that through. So now we have our layering panel, which is embossed with the fruit, and I'm going to set this to the side as we'll be using it again. Let's go ahead and adhere this, and I like to use the multi-purpose liquid glue for items that are heavily embossed. I find it gets in those crevices a little bit better and helps hold that in place. Then we're just going to add that to our card base. We can set that to the side. Now to do our stamping. So we have our card panel, which is for the interior. Then this is a 3.5 by 4.5 inch piece, which is the size of this block. I cut it that size so I could ensure that it stamped perfectly. And then a scrap of white, and that's to do the flowers as well as the sentiment piece on. So the first thing we want to do is pull in our Daffodil Delight, and we're going to stamp, or first ink up the fruit rind portion stamp. And as you notice, I'm taking the ink pad to the stamp versus taking the stamp and patting it on the ink pad. I find on larger stamps that I get better coverage if I do it that way. And then we just take and stamp that down, and I knew I brushed my finger against that ink pad. Let's see if I can continue without getting that ink all over. And then the same thing, the same color. I did not change colors for the center of the lemon. I still use the Daffodil Delight. We just line that up. We're going to stamp that. We'll set that to the side. While I have this ink out, I'm going to go ahead and pull in this scrap paper, and I'm going to stamp one set of flowers. I could do the sentiment in the sample card. I did that in the Daffodil Delight, but I think I'm going to use the Granny Apple Green this time for the sentiment. As well, we're going to stamp 2 sets of leaves. And the nice thing about this die set is it included, or it does include, 2 sets of leaves, 2 sets of the flowers, as well as there are 2 of these large flowers because there's a stamp that goes with that. So you can cut multiples at the same time. And then of course here is my stitched rectangle that I did for the sentiment. And I have already cut one. I'm going to stamp in that, and to save time I already cut the flowers because I really want to focus on showing you how to cut using the embossing folder and the die, using it as the hybrid. So let's pull the green back and stamp the sentiment on this rectangle piece. Okay, so now where did I just put that piece? There it is with the fruit. So now we're going to pull in our embossing folder as well as the dies that match our stamped fruit. So the key on this is to look at the embossing folder, find again the front panel, open that front panel, and place the die over the fruit. You'll see how the fruit, how it just lays out, and then it sort of locks in place. And now you want to make sure that this cutting edge is facing up. Then you're going to take your stamped piece and you're just going to lay it down. And then we're going to close it and we're going to flip this over. Actually, I did pretty good on that one. Almost got it lined up without even having to lift the edge and push things around. But we're just going to push a little and make sure we get that lined up inside there. And then I'm using the center of the fruit, in this case the lemons, the little centers, just as my point to make sure things are lined up. Then again, I'm pulling in my die cutting plate 1, then using the embossing folder number 4. This is what you use when you've got these thick embossing folders. Those are the only 2 things you need. We're going to pull this in, and now I am going to place this at an angle on my board, only because when I make the sandwich, and when I say at an angle, let me show you this. I'm placing this at an angle just because of, I know this particular machine, I have a little bit different pressure point in the middle than I do on the sides. So I find I get a better cut when I angle it just a little. So if you're having issues cutting certain dies with your die cutting machine, I suggest you try putting your embossing folder or your dies in at an angle. I find that little trick seems to work well just about every time. And I have several die cutting machines and they all cut differently. So you just have to learn the little tricks of the trade, as they say. So see how that did? That cut and embossed at the same time. Just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So there's a lot of variety that you can do with this card. Not only emboss, but cut and emboss, or you could just cut. I mean, it's really a multitude of things that you can do. So I'm going to pull in the leaves and the flowers, and we're going to start our assembly. So the first thing I did was I put down the larger lemon. Then we're going to place a leaf right over on the side. And then with Stampin' Dimensionals, I'm going to use those to add our sentiment to our lemon card, our lemon squeeze card. We'll take our half of a lemon, and we're just going to angle that there, and I am going to place a Stampin' Dimensional since it's going on the corner. I did of the sentiment that's lifted up. We don't want that part just floating in the air. Oh, and I covered my sentiment, didn't I? There we go. I don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to move that up a little. There we go. I forgot to move this sentiment over a little bit more on there, but that's perfect. Yes, that will work perfect. Then we're going to take that other set of leaves and we'll place it on the edge of our sentiment as such. And then I am going to stick one dimensional on the back of this, but I'm also going to put a little bit of liquid glue up along that edge that's going to lay down along there. Perfect. Now we'll just add a few flowers to embellish, and I use the mini glue dots for these. And then with this whole lemon that I had left, I'm just placing it on the inside panel. And of course I left it blank. You could find another stamp set that may have a favorite sentiment for you. even if it's a just thinking of you, or a lot of times I just like to leave them blank and write my own message on the inside. Then last but not least, we're going to embellish it, and I'm using the adhesive back Milky Dots. Now these have been discontinued, so in its place you could use rhinestones that you color with a yellow stamp, the Daffodil Delight stamping blends. You could look at, or you could just stamp it with the center stamp that comes with it. But look at the different embellishments. I think there are some adhesive back rhinestones that have yellow in them that would also work as a great accent. But see how simple that card came out? But believe me, it doesn't look simple with all of the embellishment and embossing that is done. It really elevates the card. And then of course you can stamp onto your envelope so that you have that to go with it. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and our sending you a big squeeze lemon card. But thanks for joining me. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and look for the other videos that feature this sweet citrus bundle, because it was a fun class. Have a great rest of your day.